Howdy, everybody. How goes it? This is Dr. Matt Dorsey, CHOQ Chief Scientific Officer, et cetera, et cetera. You know who I am, but perhaps if you're new, just FYI, I am CHOQ's formulator as well as Chief Scientific Officer, and I am a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine by training and have been in the supplements industry for about 13 years now. Not as much of a veteran as some, but I'd say I qualify as a veteran in the supplements realm. Anyway, happy Friday, everybody. CHOQ Norris. That's a great name. Welcome, CHOQ Norris. I love your name. Talking about chalking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party. Okay, very cool. Welcome, welcome. CHOQ Norris, I can't tell whether you are a regular who's changed your name or if you are new, but either way, welcome. Hey, how's it going, Dylan? I'm wearing my favorite shirt today and kind of seeing yes, Chuck, we are live. Seeing a theme here where maybe we take things slightly less seriously on Fridays since it's sort of like the beginning of the weekend and it's kind of happy fun party time or whatever. Last Friday, I wore a cowboy hat and talked for an hour and 40 minutes, and that was lots of fun. So we'll see how this Friday goes. Probably won't do an hour and 40 today, but we'll see what happens. Yaneska says, I just received my second 2-month supply of CHOQ. So excited. Very cool, Yaneska. Yeah, once you get in the habit of taking it on a regular basis, you really don't want to stop, do you? Because of what it does for you. I've been thinking about themes recently and sort of what themes to, it makes sense right now. And obviously, gratitude's a big one with Thanksgiving coming up. And yeah, I kind of want to delve a little bit more into gratitude research. I don't have anything, I don't have any specific studies for you guys off the top of my head right now, but I did very briefly before the show started find a couple of links. You guys might be interested in checking this out. This first one is from gratefulness.org. It is it's a nonprofit dedicated to gratitude, basically, not trying to sell anything. They're just nonprofit and they just got cool resources on that. And then I've got a link from positivepsychology.com that I randomly found. And, I haven't vetted all the research on here. So just quick disclaimer, but this one's a compilation of the research on gratitude and it's linked with love and happiness. So, but I thought that on that note, though, because we like to keep it very integrative, very East meets West, right? I think, Chuck says it's flickering. Anybody else having audio or video problems? Let me know if that's an issue. But in keeping with the whole integrative East meets West, metaphysical and also scientific blend that I like to try to, shoot for, right? That's the whole CHOQ way and the CHOQTOR way. I thought we would talk about gene expression for a second. So I did this deep dive on ashwagandha. And if you guys haven't seen this before, I highly recommend it. Let me see if I can pull it up so I can link to it real quick. It's me and Dr. Thomas from Natreon. Amazing guy. One of the only guys who I always say whenever he and I talk, he always teaches me something new. Brilliant guy, PhD, nutritional biochemistry or something like that. Let me just see if I can find this. We did a deep dive on ashwagandha, and there is a point to this story, I promise. But here's this one. Definitely, guys, check this one out if you can. Deep dive on ashwagandha. It's just called Ashwagandha Science Deep Dives with Dr. Dorsey 2021. This one came out last month, beginning of last month. And really, really awesome. If you want to know everything there is to know about ashwagandha, that's the one. But the reason I'm bringing it up is not to talk about ashwagandha, which, of course, is amazing. And if you haven't tried it, you definitely should. It's an everyday kind of thing. But regardless of that, though, the reason I brought it up is because toward the end of that video, Dr. Thomas and I, both being obviously scientifically minded people, but also kind of cool, integrative people who also meditate and are into certain things like that, we brought up the fact that, you'll see you'll be on Instagram, right? And on Instagram, you'll get this thing where like, you'll see all these different metaphysical type memes from more hippie type folks, and I'm not against hippies, I'm part hippie myself. And they'll say things that a lot of people who are more scientifically minded will dismiss as just garbage information, just hippie, stupid, idiot, whatever, blah, 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 right? They'll just denigrate it. And one of those things is that thoughts can make you sick. So let's break that down for a second. Can thoughts make you sick? So obviously there's the more metaphysical interpretation of that a thought goes in your energy field and can create disease and all that. And like, okay, so maybe, right? But the purpose here, in a slightly more hard-nosed scientific way, even though I believe in all the other stuff is potentially real as well, I'm not a materialist, obviously you guys know I'm into all the subtle energy stuff and chakras and meridians. I mean, basically I have a doctorate in being a hippie. I'm a doctoral level acupuncturist, but thoughts can make you sick because thoughts can change gene expression. And so in a very, very hard science way that has nothing to do with metaphysics or energy or anything, not that that's not real, but you don't even have to invoke that if you want to talk about how thoughts can make you sick. Genes, we used to think, the sort of old silly way of looking at genes is it's all genetic determinism, right? You have a certain gene and that gene determines everything about you, whether you're going to get sick or not, blah, blah, blah. Old garbage. 1990s level stupid information that's not correct. There are a very tiny number of actual issues, actual diseases that are genetically based. It is a tiny percent, tiny. And even when they correlate certain genes to certain health outcomes, it's not a matter of like, if you have this gene, you definitely have this issue. It's like you might have a propensity toward it. So it's all about gene expression. Is that gene active or not? And guess what turns genes on and off? Nutrients can turn genes on or off. Like, so for example, great example. Y'all probably know that our, where's my Shilajit here? Oh, you know what? Here we go. Shilajit. So we have research on the Shilajit. Sorry, the autofocus is kind of not always working, but this can actually switch on genes in charge of producing collagen, right? Also called ECM, extracellular matrix genes, ECM genes, right? So that is an epigenetic study, right? And so now, okay, going all the way back full circle to what I was talking about with gratitude. And I'll definitely get to y'all's questions in a second. Thank you for all the awesome questions. Don't hold back. I will in a moment, but I just want to continue with this line of thinking for a second. So gratitude, right? Anytime we talk about some of these loftier concepts like being grateful or whatever it is, if you want to actually be the smartest person in the room when you're talking about this stuff, talk about how the future of research is epigenetics. And for those of y'all who aren't familiar, I'll just type this out. Epigenetics, epi meaning above, right? Epinephrine, which is a synonym for adrenaline. Epi just means above, and neph means kidneys. Your adrenals, which is where epinephrine comes from, are above the kidneys, right? So here's your kidney, here's your adrenal gland. Epineph just means above kidneys. Adrenal means above. Ad means above. Renal means kidneys. So anyway, epigenetics, above genetics. So it's the science of studying the activation and deactivation of genes. Just because you have a gene doesn't mean it's not active. Now, so all these loftier sounding things from metaphysics and all those communities, right? Spirituality, et cetera, whatever it is, where it sounds more really woo-woo and esoteric. Well, guess what? It's not at all. And again, like I said, I'm down with all the esoteric stuff, but we now are getting the point where we can measure what turns genes on or off. And I've got a bit of a treat for you today if we're going to just really dork out hardcore. This is a book by Dr. Rossi called The Psychobiology of Gene Expression. Yes. And I'm actually going to read from this. Like most very dense books like this, I haven't even finished the whole thing. And maybe I never will because look how thick this freaking thing is, right? But yes, let's nerd out. And I'm going to read you a story from here that's actually kind of really nerdy and scientific and also heartwarming at the same time. It has a perfect blend. This is really interesting. Check this out. And again, I'll get to y'all's questions in a second. So don't feel like you can't ask questions, but just want to do this first. All right. So there's this story that appeared in a Reader's Digest called A Sister's Helping Hand. The heartwarming story, true story of a sister's helping hand that appeared in Reader's Digest in May 1995 provides a vivid example of gene expression via human experience. The story begins with the premature birth of twins. Each of the twins was immediately placed in a separate incubator in accordance with the normal hospital rules. One of the twins, the weaker of the two, was not expected to live, however. A sympathetic nurse, following her heartfelt intuition and sense of sheer desperation, defied hospital rules by placing the two babies together in one incubator. Unexpectedly, the healthier twin threw an arm over her sister in an endearing embrace. The smaller baby's heart soon stabilized, her temperature returned to normal, and she survived. The twins thrived together, and now at home, they still sleep snuggling together. How can we account for what happened to be a heartwarming miracle wrought by a newborn sister's helping hand? No one was around at the time to measure gene expression of the twins during their early life crisis. Current research in gene expression and human experience, however, is now finding an answer to how healing touch is possible. Saul Schonberg and his colleagues, Kuhl and Schonberg, 1998, at Duke University, for example, discovered how maternal touch can activate something called immediate early genes, such as C-MYC, C-MYC, and also MAX, which in turn activate a target gene called ODC, ornithine decarboxylase. Turning on the ODC gene, ornithine decarboxylase, leads to the synthesis of proteins that contribute to physical growth and maturation at the cellular level. There have been experimental findings that deprivation of maternal touch for even 10 or 15 minutes results in a dramatic drop in ODC gene expression and therefore physical growth of 10-day-old rat pups. So little baby rats, you can actually reduce their growth by reducing maternal touch. And we know the exact scientific mechanism behind this now. Within 2 hours of ODC activity, ODC activity is down 40%, where it remains until maternal touch returns. It has been known for some time that human infant orphans fail to thrive and grow physically when isolated in an institution without the normal amount of touch. This is some really brutal research I don't even want to get into because it's so horrible. But yes, so long story short, though, guys, like this is like, if you want to be on the real cutting edge of science, it's all about epigenetics. I know some of y'all have mentioned Bruce Lipton, PhD. He's a geneticist, hard to pronounce that. Bruce Lipton is awesome. The Biology of Belief, that's one of his books. He talks ad nauseum about this. He's the kind of guy who's literally been teaching medical school students for like 40 or 50 years, right, about genetics. So very, very, they're fixing the plumbing in my apartment, so I don't know if you guys can hear that. But anyway, very awesome. And this is the cutting edge, right? So just want to make that point that, with stuff that seems more hippie, woo-woo, touchy-feely or whatever, if you want to actually be totally hard-nosed scientific about it, you have to take into account gene expression. And this is a huge mystery in science. Huge mystery in science. We still don't know exactly how different emotions, even nutrients, for example, can switch genes on or off. There's huge mysteries. Further, epigenetic data is also transmitted from generation to generation. So when you are born, for example, you don't just take on the genes of your mother and father. You also take on epigenetic tendencies. So they've actually shown, there's research where, for example, you can do a certain thing to a rat, right? You can make that rat scared of something, right? Create a fear association with something, even like a color or just whatever it is. And then that fear association will be transmitted I think it's like up to like 7 or 8 generations into the future. And that's not genetic data that's happening. That is an epigenetic or some other level of information that science doesn't understand. And this also goes back to that crazy thing we were talking about before, the DNA phantom experiment, right? Where there might be DNA might have a special property where it actually communicates with a level of reality that other kinds of matter can't. There is something that is almost antenna-like about the DNA molecular structure that enables it to actually communicate with the space-time substructure or another dimension or something like that. And it sounds like science fiction, but really, this is just science reality in the future. This is probably what we're going to figure out in the next however many decades it takes us, hopefully not too many, about how this stuff actually works. And to come full circle to one of our favorite topics, of course, you got to wonder with all the electrosmog, what we're doing to ourselves. And, you know, when in doubt, go the more natural route. You know what I mean? So a lot of people who are like techno solutionists, the kind of people who I maybe criticized in my special Stay Human episode 1, which definitely check that out if you haven't got a chance to. They're like, oh, it's a brand new technology. Humans made it. Humans are so smart. Let's just be an early adopter. Well, you know, there is cause for concern there. And those folks are so all about the go, go, go. Technology is always the solution that they're hard to convince. But I'm sure you guys, I'm probably more preaching to the choir here. There are very sophisticated, intelligent, intellectual reasons to be apprehensive about this rampant techno-solutionism. And again, I'm very pro-technology and very pro-science as long as it's being used by conscious people in a way that respects nature. But unfortunately, most of it is not being done that way. But I think that's the future. Future of science is understanding all these things that we used to think of as metaphysical and woo-woo. The vast majority of it, science just hasn't caught up yet. It just hasn't. Science can't explain meridians. It can't explain acupuncture, hardly at all. Science has tried to explain acupuncture, but it's done a horrible job of it, really. Obviously, as a doctoral level acupuncturist, I'm familiar with many of the theories attempting to explain how acupuncture works, and they're all garbage, really. It still doesn't fit into the materialistic Western model of reality. There's some interesting ones out there, though, for sure. And I probably should brush up on them. I might have colleagues who are like, well, you know, there's cool stuff out there that you don't know about, and that very well could be. But yeah. Andrew, thank you very much. Andrew says you're a great speaker. Really appreciate that. Yeah. Mr. R says, when in doubt, stomp on Rockefeller medicine and keep calm. That's hilarious. Yeah. The history of alternative medicine versus conventional in the United States is an interesting history. If you guys don't know about that, check that out. Check out also the Flexner report. Actually had a chance to discuss the Flexner report in the doctoral program I did for Chinese medicine, and that was some lively discussion. But yeah, check out the Flexner report. Check out the whole history of the demonization of alternative practitioners. Yeah, that's very real. Not conspiracy. That's just straight up real. A lot of that's just historical fact, you know. But anyway, not to focus too much on that, but come full circle one more time, though. You know, when people talk about the importance of gratitude, don't think of it as, hey, this is just some silly hippie dippy crap, right? Gratitude's really important. It's super important. And there is legitimate research out there showing what gratitude does for you. And one of the reasons I think Thanksgiving is cool, regardless of any other opinions about what it should or shouldn't be or blah, 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 is that it's an excuse for people to be grateful. And that's freaking important because it's easy to take things for granted, to not appreciate what you have. And it's critical to be grateful. And further, if you need this kind of evidence to suggest or to further galvanize you, then yes, there's scientific research out there showing that it is good for your physical health as well to be grateful. All the things that we already know, right? That it doesn't have to tell us, but it helps, right? Like physical touch, right? Massage, or whether it's from a your boyfriend or girlfriend, or whether it's from even just in a non-sexual way. Like I said, therapeutic, like massage, physical touch is huge, gratitude is huge. All these things, they affect the way our genes are expressed. They're altering gene expression, and they can massively alter downstream from the gene expression, because the gene expression controls the hormone synthesis. And then the hormones feed back into the brain and completely change the way that we operate in reality. And, if you think that you're just a spiritual being and you're not also at the same time limited by your physical expression, well, see what happens if all of a sudden you get injected with a whole bunch of anti-hormones. What happens when all the testosterone, all the estrogen gets sucked out of your body, you can't work? You're going to feel very different. And yeah, you're still a spiritual being having a physical experience, in my philosophy anyway, perhaps not yours, but in mine, right? But you have to acknowledge how limited, even if you are a spiritual being, how limited you are by your biology. And that is one of the reasons that studying this stuff is actually itself a kind of spiritual outlet, because it gives you such a profound compassion for people whose nervous systems and endocrine systems are super jacked up because of the way that we live our lives, because of the modern insanity that we find ourselves in, right? With just we're just, our systems are just flooded with chemicals, most of which have minimal safety testing, to be frank. And so, yeah, of course, a lot of folks are acting crazy, we got all sorts of weird stuff floating around in our blood, messing with our hormones, messing with our nervous systems. Of course that's going to happen, So anyway, but at the end of the day, the point is to have compassion, right? Which I'm sure is another thing that will scientifically prove is also physically good for you, to be compassionate. I wrote a blog you guys might dig. Let me just see if I can find it really fast. Have you guys ever read this blog I wrote called The Divisive Virus? This is a fun one. And I'm not talking about an actual real virus. It's sort of a play on words. I'm talking about a mind virus, right? And I call it the divisive virus. So what's the divisive virus? So it's a made-up virus of the mind that I made up just for the purpose of this blog to prove a point. And the point there, here we go. I found it. I'm trying to multitask here. So check this one out. The point here is that, some of the really, really major viruses of our time that we should be really scared of are not physical viruses. They're not little tiny, and those are also important, of course, and I'm not denying their reality. But viruses of the mind. We live in the era of psychic viruses, and there's a virus of sort of like division or divisiveness, the divisive virus in a sense that gets propagated through social media, makes us really hate each other. It's part of this whole divide and conquer strategy. And it's really hard because I know a lot of folks probably in CHOQ Nation, you guys probably have maybe some also in some areas uncommon opinions about certain very important topics of the day, certain wedge issues, right? Like this thing that starts with a V that I can't talk about, or whatever it is, right? And I'm not telling you guys you have to believe one thing or another about any of this. I'm not, advocating that. I'm just saying in general, though, just be aware, it's really important to speak your opinion. And I think that we shouldn't ever censor ourselves. If we feel that a certain message needs to get out there, we should not be afraid to share that message. At the same time, it does kind of suck because people are really getting into this whole us versus them weird red team, blue team, Coke versus Pepsi mentality where everybody's just like, which side of this are you on? And then if you don't agree with me, I hate you and I'm going to kick your ass. And it just gets really immature in third grade really quickly. And that's really difficult because ideally adults should be able to discuss things in a way that is, it's like, well, we don't see eye to eye on this issue, but we can at least not hate each other. And let's just have an adult conversation about this, why do you see things this way? Right. And just to have mature disagreements with people, where we don't have to, we can still be friends, we don't have to be enemies and just throw poop at each other like monkeys. You know what I mean? We can actually be mature about it. So that's my little rant on that. And I always like to just Johnny Appleseed some of these ideas out since I have this forum, might as well. But I encourage people, especially, given the holidays and how insane stuff can be with holiday stuff, seeing family, and probably I'm sure everybody has family members who are mad at them because they either are or are not doing a certain thing that they're supposed to do to keep people safe or whatever the hell it is, and it's really tough. This is a really tough time. So we need an extra dose of compassion and patience and all those virtuous things right now. Personally, my family has literally canceled all holidays. So it's super weird, right? My family, they all live together already, like the remaining core family, that is. They all live together. And so I don't live with them. I'm the only one in the core family who doesn't live on that property, right? They all live on the same property out in the woods in Texas. And so it's super weird because I actually can't go home for the holidays, right? I didn't last year. And this year, again, there's like literally, I'm just not allowed to be there because, I have a different perspective on how to protect myself against the pathogen du jour. And so, it's kind of weird, right? So it's cool, like, finding like friends to hang out with instead, or doing like finding like a couple who has kids who's, be like, can I, be like Uncle Matt, at your Thanksgiving or whatever, which is totally fine. So I'm not complaining, but it's a very strange time. Families and friendships and relationships are very stressed because everybody identifies with their position so strongly on these wedge issues. And it's tough. Mr. R says, being a doctor, can't you talk them through it? Well, one of them I can, the other two I can't. And I think no matter what I said, they would not trust me, even though I have a lot of expertise in this area. But of course, when we're talking about authority figures, like, I'm a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, then you've got somebody else who's an MD, then you got somebody else who's a chiropractor, and somebody else who has a PhD in biology. And, sure, we're all doctors in the sense that we all have doctorates and training in physiology, right? But then it's like, well, I'm going to trust my family doctor, and it's like, okay, that's cool. Do your thing. You trust, your authority figure, right? It's all good. So then it just comes down to people being like, I have all these authority figures who all have training and they're all these fancy doctor types. And which of them do I believe? And then at the end of the day, they're just going to believe the ones that resonates the most with their pre-existing belief system and subculture, right? Whatever culture they belong to, whatever political tribe they belong to that they identify with, they're going to go with the one medical expert's opinion who resonates with that, and they're going to throw the other ones out. And that's just how it works. But yeah, so it's pretty nuts. And I'm sure probably a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. Again, I'm not allowed to say the V word. I just make this ridiculous shape with my hands and say the V word. And the point is not to talk about that per se, but more to talk about the effects that it has on our relationships and how, it's difficult. A very good friend of mine, one of my best friends, she lost 2 or 3 of her best friends ever, women who were like at her wedding and stuff, over this one topic. It's kind of sad, but that's just the reality of it. And all we have to do is just, be the change you want to see, whatever other, I know it's all like kind of trite to say this, but, do your best to be the adult in the room. And if you can present yourself in a mature adult fashion, you are more likely to get people on your side because they're like, well, at least this person's not like screaming and metaphorically throwing feces like a chimpanzee. You know what I mean? If you can present yourself as an adult who's patient, who's like, look, I understand why you see things differently. Here are the facts as I know them, and be nice to people and not be a dick about it, so to speak, then you're going to present your case much more effectively. And and again, back full circle, gene expression, fear. What do you think fear does on a gene expression level? We've all been simmering in fear for a while, right? We're all like afraid of, that we're going to die and all this intense stuff. And so you really have to just wonder. Yeah, Andrew, you like to think about throwing feces. I think it's a good metaphor. I think that, sometimes as sophisticated as we think we are as humans, unfortunately, sometimes even you could watch two people with PhDs arguing online, and it's literally just they're saying all this fancy stuff, and they're literally just chimpanzees just throwing shit at each other. That's just, on an emotional level, that's what happens. That's what happens. It's part of being human. But fear is a big deal, and it makes it really easy to control people, and it makes people not think clearly. And I have to wonder, when you scare the hell out of people, or when people scare themselves. I'm not even saying all this is being done intentionally. I'm sure some of it is, some of it isn't. I'll leave that up to Jay and these other masters of that domain. That's less my domain. I'll leave that up to those guys to educate you all on that. Jay, Alex Jones, all these other interesting cats out there who know way more on these topics than I do. But again, what percentage is intentional, what percentage is accidental, who knows, right? They know better than I do, those guys. And I'm not endorsing everything they say either, but they seem pretty interesting and good source of information in a lot of ways. But what is that doing to us? Like, what does fear do? And fear is very corrosive. Adrenaline, excess amounts of adrenaline, very corrosive to the nervous system, to the immune system, the digestive system. We're bathing in fear-induced adrenaline. Yeah. And I bring up people like Alex Jones, not to say that I endorse everything that they say or agree 100%, because I certainly don't, but we're all adults here, I certainly think he's got some interesting points to make and talks about cool stuff. But that's not the point of me mentioning all this. The point is just to say that, like, people are freaked out right now, super freaked out. And, they're not acting super sane and super, kind, perhaps, as a result of just being bathed in fear. And I'd like to also do a quick public service announcement since we're talking about fear. Who saw the Dune remake that came out? Fear is the Mind Killer. I think everybody knows that one, right? From Dune. I haven't actually read the books, by the way. I need to go and read the books. I heard they're brilliant. I've only seen the movies. The movies are great. The new one's great. Definitely go watch it. Brilliant. Well done. But fear is sympathetic nervous system, which then in turn, activates your adrenals to secrete stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline, the other name for it is epinephrine, but you can say epinephrine if you want to sound all fancy and scientific and impress your friends, but adrenaline basically. And adrenaline, cortisol, and those are the molecules of fear. And but they don't always make you feel bad though. Sometimes they actually, get you kind of high, right? Adrenaline junkies, like speeding on the freeway or bungee jumping. Like there's good blends of adrenaline too. And in fact, our friend Anthony William, I say our friend, I mean, he's not actually my friend. I just like Anthony Williams' material, the medical medium, controversial figure. His information is fantastic. I really do believe it's super advanced, very correct information, but he says there's a blend of many, many, many different kinds of adrenaline that have all different effects, and that science hasn't figured that out yet. And that certainly well may be. Unfortunately, I don't have scientific proof of that, only what he says, but on an intuitive level, that kind of makes sense, But anyway, so fear, though, in general, these adrenal hormones, one of the reasons that we take adaptogens, like Tonkat and Shilajit and ashwagandha, one of the reasons we take these adaptogens is because they support what's called the HPA axis. Hypothalamic. Bear with me here. Pituitary. Trying to make sure I spell this correctly. Pituitary, while I'm multitasking. Adrenal axis. Hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Memorize that if you want to sound smart at a dinner party or at Thanksgiving next week when you're over at your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife's family's house or whatever. HP axis. Now, what the hell does that mean? So, again, main theme here is trying to be not crazy. Trying to keep your cool in stressful situations. Adaptogens are one way to do that. for anyone who's gotten used to taking ashwagandha on a regular basis, or taking shilajit, or taking tonkat, any of these awesome adaptogens, rhodiola, like we have in Action 2.0, you get to the point where you rely on them very heavily because they provide balance in your nervous system. So the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is a very fancy way of saying hypothalamus and pituitary, those are glands in the brain, structures in the brain, right? They secrete certain hormones that then go into your blood and then hit your adrenals, right? Back here on top of your kidneys. And then they tell your adrenals to make these stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And so it's this relationship between the brain's glands and the glands back here on top of your kidneys, the adrenals, that these adaptogens tend to regulate, where perhaps if you have been, I'm not going to say that this is across the board, true for everybody, but if you have these adaptogens in your system on a regular basis, you might have more balance in this system, right? In this connection between your brain and your adrenals. And it's quite possible that in situations that would stress out other people, where they're going to be acting the fool, such as being around your people in Thanksgiving, your family, and having them accuse you of being a murderer for not getting this thing or whatever it is, that perhaps in those situations you might be less likely to overreact, or to shout back, or to fling feces, metaphorically, right, at that person, and maybe be a little bit more calm and centered about it. And so it all has to do with like when you get a strong stimulus into the nervous system of somebody, freaking out, how do you react? Do you react in a super reactive way where you're like, keyed up and aggressive and, ready to fight or whatever? Or do you react in a more calm centered way? Part of that is also testosterone. So testosterone, and of course, this is important for men and women. Both men and women need testosterone, right? But with respect to testosterone, it's important to know that it's associated with like calm confidence, So, and again, like I said, women need it as well. They need tiny amounts. Men need this much, women need this much, very small amounts, but women need it as well. And women can have high or low levels just like men can. And testosterone is a very psychoactive hormone that has huge effects on your nervous system and your whole outlook on reality, right? And when your T levels are in a good place, it gives you, Andrew Mack says, confidence, C-A-L-M fidence. That's hilarious. Yes, confidence, right? So obviously testosterone can have a bad rap, because if you imagine the stereotypical 16-year-old, 18-year-old kid who's just a total mess, a boy, teenage boy acting like an insane person. Sure, yeah, excess amounts are not good. And there's actually scientific research to show that both too much and too little testosterone can actually make you irritable. So if you're, and the excess testosterone comes from either naturally just being where you just hit puberty, right, where it's going to be very naturally high, or certain people who just have a naturally high level. But then also, obviously if you're Schwarzenegger and you're injecting this stuff, which is obviously not a good idea, and don't do that, please. Don't inject steroids, not cool. And then it might make you act like an a-hole. But typically speaking, when your T levels are in a good, healthy place, it gives you the ability to be calm and centered and not overreactive. And when your T is lower and you have relatively higher levels of estrogens in your system, that does make you more reactive. And this is true of women as well. So for a female, if there's an excess amount of estrogen relative to what's normal for a female and not enough testosterone, then that can make a woman more reactive as well. So again, different proportions for men and women, totally different, but you want them to be in the ideal range for your gender, right? And so that's another thing that these adaptogens tend to do, like your ashwagandha, your tonkat, your shilajit. They tend to promote healthy testosterone levels, and bring it back full circle to the stress hormones and the fear. So people have been so freaked out right now. So there's already a fertility crisis, and I'm going to do an entire in-depth, like 2-hour presentation on chemicals, fertility, hormones, all that stuff that I know you guys are super into. That's going to happen at some point in the next couple of months or so. So definitely stay tuned for that. But just know that like probably all the fear we're experiencing because of all this crazy stuff going on the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, probably driving fertility levels down even lower than they already were, because the worst thing for fertility is fear. Especially, this is especially more true of women than men. The female biological intelligence is very sophisticated when it comes to trying to figure out, is that woman in a safe place? Right. So just imagine this in terms of evolutionary biology. Also, I do talk about this in my ashwagandha deep dive video that I linked to earlier with Dr. Thomas. So check that one out. Over an hour, everything you've ever wanted to know about ashwagandha, and then a bunch just about human physiology and hormones in general. Awesome information. Brilliant dude. But anyway, so I do talk about this in the video toward the end, and there are chapters on there if you want to try to find it in the chapters. But so this will be review actually if you've seen that video already. But what happens is the biological intelligence of the woman's body is always asking, like, is this a safe place to have a child, right? And if there are a bunch of signals from the environment that there are a lot of predators, that's one fear signal, right? Lots of predators. Maybe it's not a good time to be fertile, right? So the body's going to down regulate fertility. Those fear molecules of, lots of cortisol, lots of adrenaline, those are going to actually down regulate sex hormones. So your androgens and your estrogens, they're actually going to be a little bit suppressed, and you're going to have higher levels of cortisol. So it's about this ratio of stress hormones to sex hormones. Very, very important. And what you'll find when you study these adaptogens, when you look at some of the research on Tomcat Ali, for example, right? What you will find is also ashwagandha. What you'll find is they're simultaneously helping to bring both of these into balance, the stress hormones and the sex hormones simultaneously, because there's this seesaw kind of push and pull between them. They're kind of opposites. And again, this is true of men as well, but it's especially true of women, because the female body is very, very sensitive to, like, oh my God, we're going to carry this thing for 9 months. This is a huge risk to the whole organism. We better be damn sure that there's plenty of food in this environment, plenty of water in this environment, and that we're safe and protected in this environment, that we don't have too many predators, that we have either a man or multiple people, like a tribe, whoever, to protect us, right? We need those things to give the signal to the body that it's all good. So again, if you want to like understand your own physiology and understand how your endocrine system feeds into your state of consciousness and what all it's dependent on, just know that fear really is the mind killer, just like they say in Dune. Chalk Norris says, I see you too have taken extra Shilajit. Well, Chalk, I won't tell you how much Shilajit I took today, but I will tell you that I'm also high on my own supply, as they call it. I have been in the lab every day experimenting with the newest CHOQ product. We'll have to come up with a code name for this product, since I can't tell you the real name because the real name's too good and we don't want somebody to steal it. But we'll call it code name CHOQ powder. Let's call it CHOQ powder for now, because it is going to be a powder and not a capsule. A couple scoops, right? And so every day I've been in my lab, my neuro lab, trying to figure out the best recipe. And ideally, right, when you're experimenting with this kind of stuff, you want to like try it by itself, right? So Mr. R says, can I have a sample of CHOQ powder? Mr. R, unfortunately, unless you sign the NDA, no, I'm just kidding. Even then you couldn't. But when it does come out, it's going to be fantastic. I promise you guys, this is going to be like CHOQ's crowning achievement of 2022 is this stuff. So I'm more than happy to like promise results, because I know it's going to be just badass. I just know it is, right? And you guys know, based on our products and how they get results, how good they already are. This one is going to be, like I said, stronger than anything else we've ever made. It's going to be about as strong as combining like Action, Daily, and Tomcat all into one product, if not stronger than that. But yeah, so I've been experimenting with all these different combinations, and in my lab, also known as my kitchen of my apartment. And wow, powerful stuff. Yeah, it's fun being your own guinea pig. And again, like I said before, by many definitions of the word, I am a biohacker, neurohacker, but I hate that term. And I encourage you guys also to just go ahead and plug the blog again. Might as well. How many of you guys have read my blog, Don't Be a Biohacker? I actually quote from this in the Stay Human episode 1 that was on a couple weeks ago. And this is one of my top 2 or 3 favorite blogs I've ever written. Check this one out if you haven't read it. Don't be a biohacker because you're not a machine. And anyway, but the essence of what people call biohacking is really cool. And it's basically just understanding your physiology so you can optimize it. That's really all it is, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. D-Wash says drop the link. Yeah, D-Wash, I just dropped the link for the blog, but let me get you a link for Stay Human as well. If you guys haven't seen Stay Human, you definitely need to check it out. Deep dive on becoming techno takeover, as I call it. Oops, mute that. So I did this on the 22nd of October. It's about almost a month old now. It's called Stay Human Episode 1. It will be a series. It's almost 2 hours long, hour and 49 minutes. Definitely check this one out. And also, if you can, make sure to please give it a like. That would be awesome if you could. The likes definitely help. Leave lots and lots of comments. And also, if you're watching this video and you're liking the content, if you wouldn't mind right now hitting the like button or smashing the like button, as so many YouTube people say, which I think is kind of annoying. But please hit the like button right now if you can. Just if it's not too much trouble, just scroll down and just hit like on your laptop or your phone or tablet or whatever. That would be super helpful. And yeah, if you guys can always just remember to do that, that really helps us a lot. I would like to build the CHOQ channel where we can give this kind of content out to one day, maybe millions of people. We'll see, just started a few months ago and we're at 1,500 subscribers, and I'd love to see that be at least 10,000 sometime next year. I think we can do it. So you guys wouldn't mind just, share this with folks, let people know we're doing good things here. And speaking of doing good things, I think it's probably time for us to give out some prizes, the several $100s worth of prizes I promised. So prize number 1, because today is double prize day, prize number 1 will be 2 of any CHOQ product, right? Which is, that right there is worth over $200, and some of our products cost $100-something. And so most of y'all know the drill, but the timer has begun. You have exactly 1 minute as of now to get your entry in, which is a 2-digit number. So enter a number in the chat right now on YouTube that is a number between 1 and 100. And I see all the likes that came in. I got about 7 or 8 likes after I said that. I really appreciate that, everybody. Thank you. I know it's annoying for people to always ask for likes. It makes you feel like a narcissist. You're like, please like me. It's kind of a dumb thing, but that's how YouTube works. So I try my best to keep it real and complain slightly about it, but that's what we have to do to get our numbers up so we can just get this content out to more people and sell more CHOQ and blah, 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 like we do, right? So always, please, if you can, every time you watch one of these videos, always hit the like button. And if you can, also maybe subscribe. That's cool too. If you want to, no pressure, but if you'd like to do that, that would also be awesome. We would deeply appreciate it. And okay, cool. So we are done. And what is the random number today? Is 37. Who's closest to 37? Let's see. Glow 120 has 34. What do we got here? Oh, Evan, 36. Evan, I do believe you might be the winner. Is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, I do believe that Mr. Evan is the winner. Evan, you won. Fantastic. Well done, Evan. Well done. Evan Appledorn, email CHOQ@CHOQ.com and tell them which two products you would like. And Evan, you can pick whatever you like. You can pick, any of our supplements. You can also pick cacao beans. You can even pick a shirt if you'd like. So whatever you'd like. Pick out those two and tell them that you were hanging out with Dr. Matt on YouTube Live and that he decided that you were the winner. Actually, the random number generator is the one who decided it, not me, but yeah. Anyway, all right, cool. And we'll do our second double prize giveaway in just a bit here, so make sure to stay tuned. You guys who've been here from the beginning, you've probably seen me get more and more game show host like over over time, right? Since we've done like almost 40 of these now. And it's kind of funny to watch myself from the third person perspective and realize how over time I've been getting less and less serious and just more and more having fun and being silly. And, at this point, like I've told you guys, I'm just like, screw it, whatever. Let's just have fun, and yeah, like I have the title of doctor and yeah, I am a serious, medical practitioner and all that. But at the same time, like I'm also kind of a little bit of a clown. And I think that the world needs clowns because we need to laugh. And laughing, probably if I were to look up laughing in the index of this baby right here, I bet laughter has huge epigenetic effects. In fact, I wonder if I can actually just do this live. What happens if we look up laughter here? The print is really small and it's kind of dark, making me feel like an old man here, but language, laughter, 244. All right, let's see. What does Dr. Rossi have to say about the genetic expression research, epigenetic research on laughter? Oh, this is cool. You guys are going to like this. Check this out. This is really awesome. Okay, so recent research on modern group healing processes modeled after ancient rituals. Oh, this is good stuff. Demonstrates the positive effects of drumming, music, and storytelling on the modulation of neuroendocrine immune parameters in normal subjects. Bittman et al. 2001, for example, report the enhancement of the immune system as measured by increased natural killer cell activity and lymphokine-activated killer LAK activity after 20 minutes of rhythmic drumming, guided imagery, and the telling of two stories, each for approximately 15 minutes. The entire session of rhythmic percussion lasted 1 hour. The total of 111 age and sex-matched volunteers, subjects with a mean age of 30 years, showed a statistically significant increase in their DHEA to cortisol ratios, what we were just talking about. DHEA is the parent molecule that you need to synthesize all of your different sex hormones, right? Your estrogen, et cetera, testosterone, right? So I'll read that one more time. The total of these all 111 volunteers showed a statistically significant increase in their DHEA to cortisol ratio that is considered conducive to healing. A high DHEA to cortisol ratio is the reverse of neuroendocrine neuroimmune pattern associated with chronic stress. Wow. So somewhere on this page, it also talks about laughter, but that's not even the part that we got to. But let's see here. Let's see where this goes. Keep going down the rabbit hole here. Based on these preliminary data, group drumming, music therapy in a manner similar to that of exercise, laughter, meditation, and other interventions that are practiced or enjoyed on a regular basis has the potential to produce cumulative or sustaining neuroendocrine or immunological effects that could contribute to the well-being of an individual facing a long-term condition in which elevated natural killer cell activity is known to be helpful. The neuroscience research in chapter 3, blah, 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 detailing novelty, enriched environments, and exercise initiate gene expression cascades leading in the formation of new proteins and neurogenesis. And then he just gets real nerdy there, so we'll call it a day on that one. But yeah, there you have it. So that's a proper application of science. Proper application of science is like, how can we use stuff that comes out of the earth? How can we use drumming, shamanic practices, laughter, and then how can we measure the positive effects on the human physiology? That's a proper application of science right there. The scientists who are doing that kind of work, we need to give those guys as much of our money and attention as possible to build those people up. not the people who are like, how can we make money by getting people to put poisonous chemicals in their bodies? Not that I have any opinions on that. LOL. Yes, and Hunter and everyone else, just so you know, because kind of starting a tradition now where maybe Fridays we go a little bit longer and just kind of get a little more down some interesting, wacky rabbit holes. You might have to wait a bit, but we still got over 20 people here and I'm kind of on a roll. So I'm going to keep going for a bit, even though I don't have the cowboy hat on like I did last Friday. But I'm thinking that Fridays might be extra lit, guys. I'm kind of liking this whole skipping Thursday, doing an extra long one on Friday, double prize day, more interesting, more fun, got the whole weekend vibe. What do you guys think about that? And yeah, stay tuned. We will do prize number 2 in just a bit. Yeah. Also, Destry, and just so y'all know, like, I'm happy to answer questions in general on many topics, including natural health and stuff like that. But by law, I can't answer anything that has to do with disease. So if you say, hey, Dr. Matt, or hey, CHOQTOR, I have fill in the blank with disease, I literally can't touch that with a 10-foot pole. So that's just how it works. If you want to say, how do I support healthy immunity, or how do I support healthy energy levels, I can talk about that. But if you say, how do I treat this disease, can't go anywhere near it, would get CHOQ in trouble. And that's just unfortunately how the law works. Love it or hate it, probably more the latter, but that's just how it works. Just FYI, guys. So if I ever seem like I'm not addressing certain questions, that's one of the reasons, is because there's legal constraints on what I can talk about here. Yeah. Mr. R has a cool question, and I haven't scrolled up to see all y'all's other questions because I was kind of just on a roll talking to other stuff. But let's do a few questions. Mr. R says, does NAC bind heavy metals out of the body? And Mr. R, to be most accurate, NAC, and forgive me for repeating myself because I know I've probably said this before, but NAC is a form of cysteine. Cysteine is one of the 3 amino acid backbones of the glutathione molecule. So you need cysteine, glutamine, and glycine. Those are your 3 primary amino acids that form the backbone of glutathione. So what NAC is, it's a form of cysteine. It helps you build that molecule. And then it's the glutathione molecule that's actually going to bind to the heavy metals. Yes. Also, Mr. R, if you want to learn more about everything that glutathione does, check out Chris Shade, PhD. Awesome resource. Just Chris Shade, just spelled normally, just like the word shade. He's got great YouTube lectures, yeah, on specifically on glutathione and heavy metals. Actually, Dr. Shade is an expert in mercury. And he himself is somebody who figured out that a lot of his issues had to do with mercury. And once he got mercury out of the body, he all of a sudden had like a normal life again. So not only is he a PhD level researcher in mercury and glutathione, but he actually is somebody who figured out a way to get his vitality back by getting the metals out of his system. And metals jack you up on so many levels, guys. Like they jack up the nervous system, they jack up the immune system. Like you definitely do want to, yeah, something you might want to look into. So, all right, let's see here. Taiba, unfortunately, that also a question that falls under the category of disease treatment. So I cannot address that question. I am so sorry. And let's just scroll up to the top and see if there's any cool questions from earlier that I might have missed when I was nerding out about gratitude and gene expression, all this cool stuff. All right. Mark says, hello, thank you so much for your videos and advice. I'm getting my new order soon. Awesome. Awesome. Cool, Mark. Glad you're digging the CHOQ. That's great. You're very welcome. Mark, make sure you, stay tuned. We'll be doing more of these on a regular basis, and we'll also be doing more occasional deep dives. I do have the one coming up on keto in a little bit. And by the way, guys, I did postpone that, just FYI. So it's not going to be for another couple weeks or so. So I'll let up on obsessively plugging it for a bit since it's still 2 weeks out. It was going to be tonight, but I decided that there was a lot of other stuff going on in CHOQ, and this is a very research-heavy thing that requires many hours of preparation. So I wanted to give it some time, and I also didn't want to do a keto anti-keto presentation on Thanksgiving week. It just seemed unfair and weird to be like telling people not to eat high-fat foods too much right before eating Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm going to do it after. But anyway, but yeah, you're very welcome, Mark. Glad you're digging it. Let's see here. Muhammad says, I want to stack ashwagandha with NAC bromelain. Yeah, Muhammad, they're very different, but the ashwagandha is, again, more like we were talking about before, is endocrine support, nervous system support, energy support. And then NAC bromelain is going to be a little bit more having to do with healthy detox and healthy immunity is kind of the theme of that one. Evan made a paste with the cacao beans and medjool dates. That sounds awesome. I think I did something like that one time. Actually, a few times I haven't really made a paste. I've just like put a date in my mouth with some cacao beans. And that is a fantastic combo. The sweetness of the date perfectly compensates for the bitterness of the cacao beans. It's really dope, as the kids say. Let's see here. All right. Bruce Lipton, something up Bruce Lipton. Okay. Good day, doctor and dear friends. Bimez, are you, I'm assuming based on your phrasing there that you are one of our Australian friends. If so, very cool. Mr. R commented earlier, no independent safety studies done on 5G still. Doesn't surprise me. Also, guys, here's something to know too. I'm gonna start nerding out here again because I just was kind of on a roll with all my ridiculous monologues. But if you really want to know how science works, it's the same way of figuring out how so many other things work. You have to follow the money, right? Now, sure, there's a handful of maybe some nonprofits out there who are doing scientific research just for the common good or whatever. That happens, but that's a small percentage of the science being done. The vast majority of the science being done is 100% for profit, right? And of course, I'm not against people making money and creating cool products and services to make money on. That's what we do, right? We're a business, right? But, it also depends on how much you trust the people who are funding these studies. And then at the same time, you have to ask yourself, how many of the questions that we could be asking of nature, where we're like, because really as a scientist, your job is to ask nature questions. Hey, Mother Nature. Hey, reality, universe. How does this work? And then, you pose your question in the form of an experiment, right? And then the answer is the outcome of the experiment. So it's a way of asking questions of nature. Hey, nature, how do electrons work, And then you do your experiment, and then nature's answer is the outcome of the experiment. So what determines which questions of nature we're asking in the first place and which questions remain unanswered because no one's asking them? Money is what determines that, right? So, if we had more money going into studying reality for the sake of just knowing reality, not for the sake of weapons, defense, control, profit, then science would be very different, right? But you have to understand science does not happen in a vacuum. People have this idea that like science is just this like monolithic, perfect human transcendent thing that has nothing to do with humans, right? And that's absolutely just ridiculous. The average person who talks about science like it's a religion where that just science figured it all out is not very scientifically educated in my experience. And they just probably have never even read a lot of science, that's a whole other topic. I don't mean to get too much in my soapbox there, but people are like science is your God, right? As a person who actually knows science, I got to tell you, you don't want to make a God out of science. Science is not a God. Science is a human process that humans made up to ask questions of nature. And humans will ask questions that will make them money and that will give them power, right? So governments will ask questions of nature where if they get a certain answer back, it enables them to get a strategic advantage over other countries, right? Companies will ask questions of Mother Nature where the answer to those questions will allow them to have some sort of proprietary thing that will make them a ton of money, right? And you have to ask yourself, how many human scientists are actually engaged in science that is for the common good, that's for the commons, right? Information that would help all of us, you know. Further, how many people who understand science because they have the training, they have the PhDs, and they know statistics, and they, you know, blah, 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 are being manipulated by this power structure, perhaps in ways that they don't even know. Scientists are not always the most psychologically savvy people. There's a lot of very like, I'm a hard-nosed scientist, you know, like I believe in physics and biology, and that's it, you know, like those kind of people. There's a lot of those folks who are very psychologically ignorant. They know nothing about the human psychology, you know, nothing about spirituality, you know, nothing about mythology. They're just completely lost in the weeds when it comes to understanding their own emotions, their own motivations. And those people are very easy to manipulate because they have no idea how many of their beliefs are actually based on being in a special club, being in a particular culture, you know, a subculture. So, yeah, I realize that going on rants is more fun than answering questions, I suppose. But Mr. R and all the other people, you know, the regulars here and everybody else, whether it's your first time or whether you're regular, I just got to say, like, I always want to try to educate you guys on how science actually works and on scientific philosophy, because without philosophy and psychology, science is lost. Philosophy and psychology give us the foundation that allows us to actually appreciate and also rein in science. You know, so many scientists are like, yeah, like, let's study this thing because, you know, that's what you do. And then the philosophers are like, well, why are you studying that? Right? The psychologists are like, well, what are the psychological forces within your psyche, within your mind that have made you ask this question of nature and not this one? And a lot of these scientists are so psychologically retarded. I'm sorry, I'll just say what it is. Like, so many of these scientists, they're so in their heads, they're so ignorant about how the human mind works that they're very easy for these power structures to manipulate, because you can convince them that they're doing the will of God almost, right? It's like this weird religious thing, like finding the ultimate truth. But they're not very good. Many of them, some of them are, but many of them are not very good at understanding philosophy, psychology, the things that would actually inform someone as to why, in the first place, you're even asking these questions of nature. You know, like, do we really need to build this new kind of drone? You know what I mean? Like, do we, like, what's the point of all of this, right? And so without, yeah, again, just, you can distill it down to that same thing I've said a couple times just now, is without philosophy and psychology, science is lost. And yes, I understand that psychology is another science, but psychology, just the general practice of attempting to understand the human psyche, yeah, we're lost without that. And people have this completely ignorant, not remotely based in reality whatsoever perception of science. And it's especially, the worst are the people who literally don't know anything about science, but they're within a particular subculture or culture, a particular political belief system or tribal culture or whatever, you know what I mean? And because their tribe, their political tribe, whatever it is, their tribe has a certain way of viewing it. And so they're like, yes, the word science means this. Science is our God within our tribe, you know? So I believe in science, right? They don't know how easily manipulated they are by these monolithic forces that have billions and billions of dollars of information, of money behind them, so that they can manipulate information in a particular way to serve a certain narrative. So you really have to forgive them and don't be upset with those people, and don't call them sheeple, you know, don't call people sheeple. Just don't do that. I mean, you know, if other people, Alex Jones or Jay Dyer, wants to call people sheeple, you know, that's fine. I'm not going to attack them because, you know, they're homies or whatever. Like, you know, we're all on the same side here, but don't call people sheeple. Since I'm on a rant, this is a sub rant. The reason you don't want to call people sheeple, and I literally have a shirt that I wear that has a sheep on it that says good citizen. So I'm kind of even guilty of this myself just by wearing this shirt. But the reason you don't want to do that is because First of all, you are sheeple. We have elements within our own psyche that are just like that are just as easily manipulated. Second of all, it's true that many people do kind of somewhat act like sheep. It's, you can't kind of argue with that. It does happen. People tend to be, many of us, very conformist, especially when we're scared. But at the same time, it's kind of just a disrespectful term. It's not the best. It's not a good way to create bridges, to extend olive branches. That's not how you do it. It's by just painting this broad, with such a broad stroke, being like, screw all these sheeple. They're just a bunch of idiots. It's like, yeah, I get it. But at the same time, I don't think that's actually helping the situation to use that kind of derogatory terminology for huge groups of people. Bridge burning, Andrew. Yeah, exactly right. Bridge burning, and at this time with this, like I said, the divisive virus, all that stuff, like this is the time when we want to build bridges, not burn them. We already have too much division, too much divisiveness with this divisive virus, this virus of the mind. And yes, but I do encourage what I call scientific literacy. So wherever you guys, all y'all are regulars here, like, I don't know, how much science you guys dig into, and maybe some of you guys have degrees, you have scientific training, different areas, some of y'all might know more in certain areas scientifically than I do, obviously I'm more in the biology, physiology realm, right? I don't know as much about, say, perhaps I know more about physics than most people, but not nearly as much as somebody who actually studies physics, obviously. So I don't know where all y'all are coming from, but I would just say it's important in your own knowledge of how reality works. It's just important to know that science is a lot more complex and a lot more human error based than we think it is. And, it's just important to know that science, people can have their thumb on the scale. It happens. Got to know about this. There's a lady, I forgot her name, but she was the former editor-in-chief. She's a doctor, physician, editor-in-chief of the New England Journal of Medicine. And for anybody in that realm, if you know that New England Journal of Medicine is one of the most prestigious medical journals, maybe the most in the world. It's in the top few, right? It's a really big deal. So New England Journal of Medicine, top medical journal in the world, definitely the top one in the United States, as far as I've heard. And she was the editor-in-chief. She's at the very, very top of figuring out who gets into this prestigious journal. She saw so much tomfoolery and so much just jacked up anti-science, manipulation, money, corruption, just garbage while she was there for, 5 or 10 years, I think, maybe. Don't quote me on that, but she was there for a while, more than a year or two, that she actually became a whistleblower and wrote a book about it. And I'll have to find this book. Again, I can't remember her name. I want to say maybe it started with an M, might be like Madeline or Marilyn or something. But she wrote a whole book about all the crazy shit that she saw as the editor-in-chief of New England Journal of Medicine. So yes, a lot of weirdness out there for sure. And you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Doesn't mean you can't believe anything, but also intuition's fine too. The reason that the reason that I'm glad that I'm in the realm of science is that so I can hopefully give it a better name and represent, as myself being a scientist and a medical practitioner, being one of the good ones, I guess you could say, one of the ones who's not just way off in bat country worshiping science as a god, because that's just ridiculous. It's a human-made process that we use to get information from nature, and it's highly fallible. And it's a beautiful thing. Science is a beautiful thing, but you have to understand where it fits into the human experience. And you can't just be like everything else, like feelings are not real, like the spiritual experience is not real. Like all of that is extremely important. So the people who I listen to, scientists wise, who are the ones who are really worth my attention, are the ones who are not these dogmatic, ridiculous materialists like Richard Dawkins and people who are like, have this chip on their shoulder where they're just anti-God and all this stuff. That's just silly, and, who have an actual spiritual foundation, which is a proper foundation through which to view the divine mystery of reality, and to acknowledge humbly how little we know about the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. And then to use that as your point of inquiry, into reality. So that's my rant on that. Again, feeling kind of ranty today. Maybe I'll just call it Rant Friday. I don't know. Should come up with something that starts with an F so we can have alliteration there. But whew, that was fun, guys. Dang. Fridays are pretty lit, huh? Hour and 15 minutes. Speaking of having a good time, how about we give away some prizes? All right, 1 minute timer has begun. You know the drill. 2-digit number, 1 entry only. You have 53 seconds remaining. And I'll be mildly annoying and just say, if you haven't hit that like button, please do. Please feel really bad if you haven't. No, I'm just kidding. Not trying to guilt anybody into liking this video, but if you have the ability to perhaps hit that like button, it might not be a bad idea. I'm sure most of y'all have already, but always helps, always helps. And yeah, if you do love what we do here, it sure would help us if you could subscribe to bring our subscriber numbers up. All that stuff that I have to do to be an effective YouTube host. And I know it's ad nauseum. I'm sure every single person on YouTube you guys watch says the same damn thing, and I'm very aware of that. So I do appreciate you understanding that it's just part of the YouTube game. All right, we are done. So our number was 59. And so Danny B had 63. That's 4 away. Anybody else? Mr. R, you were close this time. You were only 5 away. Mr. R almost won it for like the 7th or 8th or 9th time. But let's see here. I believe it is Danny, right? Is that correct? Danny is 4 away from 59 at 63. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. No, Sergio has 61. I'm so sorry. My apologies. Sergio, 61. That's 2 away from 59. Sergio, you are the winner. All right. My mistake. Sorry about that. Didn't make me get you too excited there, Danny B. But yeah, Sergio, you are the winner of prize number 2. And because today is double prize day, that means that you win a better version of prize number 2. So the double version of prize number 2 is 1 of any CHOQ product, 1 1-pound bag of organic heirloom cacao beans, and an organic cotton CHOQ t-shirt. So yes, Sergio, congratulations. Email CHOQ@CHOQ.com. Tell them that Dr. Matt says you won prize number 2, or you can call me the CHOQTOR if you want. You know, whatever you want to call me. You want to use the serious version of my name or the silly version of my name, either one. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know what you guys are thinking, as far as if you're liking these extra lit Fridays or not. I think it's kind of fun. I think I might start doing this on a regular basis, like I said, where Thursday I got caught up in some extra work and do some other stuff, and then Friday we just go hard, and it kind of makes it more fun. We have double prizes that way, go a little bit longer, and then we get this whole fun weekend vibe. Last Friday was a good turnout. This Friday was a good turnout. So I think I might just keep doing that for now. Just do it like 4 days a week, just skip Thursdays. And yeah, and who doesn't like double prize day, right? So this was pretty lit. I think it was pretty awesome. This was chocolate, CHOQLIT. And we are, of course, going to have a whole line of products called chocolate. You guys already know that, right? We got the first one coming out in a couple months. Chocolate powder. Be on the lookout for that. And yeah, so make sure to share with your friends, like, subscribe, blah, 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 all that stuff, I know chocolate, right? It's pretty awesome, JJ. Yeah, I love it. And yeah, if you get bored later or sometime this weekend or whatever, if you want to check out right there, I linked to it. Stay Human episode 1, the coming techno takeover. That is probably the single most epic video on the CHOQ Nation YouTube channel. Oh, sorry you missed it, Laura, but the replay will be available in a few seconds here after I sign off. But yeah, check out Stay Human for anybody who wants to know more about all the weird stuff with technology, the obsession with transhumanism, Kurzweil, Google, artificial intelligence, cybernetics, and the underlying psychology and philosophy and mythology underneath all of that. That was a super fun presentation. I was wearing this shirt the whole time, my favorite shirt, of course. And yeah, Last thing I'll say is I'm going to run this idea by you guys before I head out. I had the idea recently. I was chatting with the CHOQ team, and I was thinking about actually having my own version of the CHOQ t-shirt, like a special CHOQTOR edition of the CHOQ t-shirt. That's a totally different design that says "Stay Human" on it. And I'd like it to be really, really cool, really sleek. And yeah, so for those of you guys who are fans of Live with the CHOQTOR and you guys have fun with these, and for these guys who like the expression "Stay Human," I'd like to have a CHOQ Stay Human shirt. And maybe we'll make it where it's exclusive, where you can only get this shirt if you win on these. I think that'd be really cool. Where literally we won't even sell the shirt. It'll be super exclusive. We'll do a run of like 100, and the only way to get the shirt or the hoodie or whatever it is to actually tune in here and to win. So yeah. If you guys like that idea, let me know in the comments. Drop a comment on this video after it's done. I would like to see if that's something you guys would be into, and if so, I'll let the CHOQ team know, and we'll get our designer working on it. Yeah, awesome. Well, this was super fun. We're gonna keep doing extra lit Fridays. I think double prize day, lit Fridays, extra long, extra crunk, extra philosophical and fun. So, but yeah, I'll be back next Monday, and probably around 5 or so, something like that, Central Time, usual time, and then yeah, we'll be getting extra crunk probably next Friday. So much love, guys. Thank you for the great time as always, and stay human.